Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community, but it really isn't that, is it? This is going to be the strength world, which is what I care about. I don't care about the fitness community, but I do care about the strength world. And I have had a ton of guys ask me questions in the last couple days about Hafthor Bjornsson's 480 kilo deadlift. Like, what do you think about it? Is he going to beat Eddie Hall? Does it count? Is it a record? All these questions. But just a quick reminder for those of you who like these type of videos, please remember to click like down below. It would be greatly appreciated. Now, I'm going to say when we're talking about comparing these different lifts, it's completely subjective. It's going to be a matter of opinion, and it's going to be a matter of where you are coming from with your mindset. Because we don't have an apples to apples comparison with him and Eddie Hall. But for strongman purposes, that may not matter. Because what people forget, and the reason I would even bring up the apples to apples is because I come from more of a powerlifting background. Powerlifting is very big into standardized apples to apples comparisons. Strongman isn't really so much about that. And that's what people forget. Different strength sports actually measure different things. They do. And I think that we could state this objectively. Anyone who can set aside their own bias and look at these things objectively can agree. Powerlifting measures in a standardized fashion brute strength and pure strength. That's all it measures. Doesn't measure anything else, and it does it very, very, very effectively. If you understand what the word strength means, like if you know the actual definition of the word strength, not you whatever your make-believe fairy tale version of it is, but what the actual exercise science definition of it is, powerlifting measures pure strength, the best out of the strength sports, and with strength lifting actually doing the same thing. Okay. Olympic lifting isn't a measure of pure strength. It's a measure of skill, speed strength combined with strength. It essentially measures three different elements into one dynamic. So therefore that makes it more complicated. So weightlifting, also called Olympic lifting, but weightlifting is the name of it, doesn't measure the exact same thing. It is actually a different metric that it's measuring because they're highly technical skill-based lifts that do have a speed strength component. Powerlifting does not, which is kind of funny. They should actually change the names. They should call powerlifting weightlifting, and they should call weightlifting powerlifting because it would actually make a lot more sense, and a lot of people have pointed that out. That would actually be better names for them because there's definitely a larger power component to weightlifting and a skill component. Strongman is its own crazy circus act. Now, and here's what I will say. I love powerlifting. Powerlifting is my favorite sport. But as far as watching a sport goes, let's be honest, strongman is more entertaining, right? Again, we can all agree on that. To watch it from a distance on a screen, if you're not a big powerlifting fan, come on. If you're not a weightlifting fan, it is boring as hell. But strongman is entertaining. It has a much higher degree of showmanship. It just looks all around funner. Now, it also has a higher injury rate. But what does strongman measure? Strongman measures this bizarre combination of brute strength with athleticism and the ability to just handle awkward loads, right? So, and people say, well, it measures, well, no, it doesn't measure pure strength as much as powerlifting does. It really doesn't. Because the strongest guy doesn't always win the world's strongest man. The objective word strength, okay? Because a person can be the strongest guy up there and be less athletic. Okay. Athleticism and conditioning play a role. They're actually important variables. So in terms of measuring a larger diversity of performance elements, strongman wins. I would say it wins there. Doesn't measure pure strength. But it measures this whole collage of things, and that's what makes it entertaining. It's so random. But by that same token, it's not as standardized, is it? So we come over and we compare. For me as a power lifter, I would look at what Hafthor did, and here's what I would say, my opinion. Hey, that is a stupidly strong pull. Guy is insanely strong. Hey, there's no doubt about that. I wouldn't say it's equal to Eddie's, and the reason I say that, he would say, well, there's no suit. How much is the suit adding? But he's using a different bar. He's using an elephant bar. So if we're going to say, well, the suit is letting you lift this much more, but then you're like, but you're using an elephant bar that bends more, makes it easier out of the bottom. But then people argue with the elephant bar. Some people feel it rolls more, and hey, you have to pull different with a different pull style. Okay, but here's the problem. We're now comparing two different equipment sets. We're comparing two different equipment sets. I mean, so he can say, well, this is the strongest deadlift without a suit. Well, for me, as a sport that measures the deadlift also without a suit, I look at that and go, well, it's not a deadlift bar. You're wearing straps. It's got straps on. That's not even a deadlift if you got straps on. But, again, the strong men will say, oh, shut up, it's more weight. Okay, so you guys see the problem? We're not really making an apples to apples comparison. So if we're going to try to compare two different things objectively, we can't. Eddie's wearing a suit. He's probably getting some leverage out of that. Hafthor is using a different bar that has more bend in it, and the plates are further out. It's not an apples to apples comparison. So to even say that it's a more, so it's almost like, well, no suit, so it's strong. Okay, well, fine, but how do you know Eddie wouldn't have pulled the same thing with no suit? We don't have a valid comparison. And here's what I would say. If Hafthor thinks he can beat Eddie Hall's lift, I would say go grab a deadlift bar, throw on a suit, and hit 501. There you go. Bam, done. Be done with it. Just do it. But if he manages to do that, or by the way, strongman measure stuff, are they going to count it? Probably. Hey, a lot of people in strongman would say, hey, this is whatever, it's the strongest deadlift without a suit. As strongman counts it, because they don't really standardize stuff the same way. They don't oftentimes care what bar you do. It's a less standardized sport because there's so much randomness and awkward lifting and random events, sometimes almost random-ish, that they'll count it. And so here's what I would say. People say, well, does it count? Well, I guess we would have to look at the current rules of strongman and how they define things. They define stuff a little bit looser. So if the rules of the sport count it and pass it, then hey, it counts and passes. Or if they're doing it at individual events, such as, again, like the Arnold Classic or World's Strongest Man or whatever, if that's the event that they have and they have it set up that way and that person breaks a record, that counts as a record. Counts as a record. Now, my personal opinion, okay, this is where my opinion comes in, trying to be objective and look at the different equipment, the different bar versus the suit. Do I think Hafthor is as strong as Eddie Hall on a deadlift? I'm going to say probably not. He's really, really freaking close. He's really close. Is Eddie probably at his peak a stronger deadlifter when he was at his peak? I'm still going to say yeah. I'm going to say yeah. Because, I mean, we could reasonably argue that the elephant bar is probably giving just as much pulling advantage over the deadlift bar as the suit is giving over the elephant bar. Okay, it's probably, if I was going to guesstimate, they probably give a very similar degree of advantage. Could it be off by a little bit? Sure. They probably give a fairly similar amount of advantage you could lift more with. So it is probably roughly an equal comparison. Roughly. And in that case, Eddie's got 20 kilos. And at the end of the day, I guess if we're going to talk strength and we're going to try to compare different lifts the best that we can that are slightly different, 20 kilos is 20 kilos. That's still 44 pounds, guys. So it is what it is. My opinion, I'm still going to say, I'm going to kind of tip in favor of Eddie Hall. I'm tipping his favor. Now, and that's not to say that they're not both insanely, ridiculously, inhumanly strong guys, because they both are. Okay, you can't take that away from either one. But I'm still going to go with Eddie Hall on this one. Dude at his peak was probably still a bit stronger. I mean, we're not talking mountain stronger, but a little bit stronger. And you know what? When we're comparing strength, a little bit counts. Okay? And as far as beating someone else, close doesn't count. Be stronger than someone else, you got to lift more than they do. It's just what it is. Them's the rules. And that's just my opinion on it. It's just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.